Here we go. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Heather.
I'm Amy.
And we're gonna try to talk slowly and not on top of each other today.
That will be a challenge.
We've heard a few complaints. A, we talk too fast, we talk over each other, and it stresses people out when we stand.
I'm gonna try taking deep breaths.
Let's take a couple. So, we are here to talk about frugal sewing, which is not something, to be honest, I am super familiar with, but you are.
Yeah, and that's why we make a good team.
Amy, and I say this lovingly, is the cheapest person I know. But I mean, I should specify that it's not cheap in the sense that, like,
Miser.
You're a miser. Like, you're very generous and you have a beautiful home and you make beautiful things, but you have a gift about doing that without spending a lot of money, where my instinct is to save my money and to, like, buy the best quality thing and never buy it again. And I like luxurious things and I like treating myself. Like, you have a bit of an allergy to that in terms of, like, spending the money, but you have an ungodly gift for, like, finding the perfect thing at the thrift store, or having the friend with expensive taste who likes to give you stuff, like our friend Sheldon, who's always giving her, like, Burberry scarves and stuff. But I think it's just a really interesting tension between the two of us. And, like, Amy's, but funny, like, your favorite verb is, that looks really expensive.
Yeah, no, I think I can I appreciate quality. I think I know quality, you know. I'm looking for silk and wool and leather and things that are of high quality at the thrift store. But I was joking earlier, I don't know what generational trauma, what, you know, horrible depression I lived through in a past life. I come from a very middle class family. We were fine, but I've just always had this sense in me that I hate waste. I think more allergic than expensive, I feel allergic to waste. It makes me crazy. I'm a big cook and I'm like, my goal at the end of the week is to use up every single vegetable.
I mean, side note, she has 2 boys, and sometimes I'll go to the house and I'll, like, open the fridge and I'm like, this is impressive, because there's, like, one jar of, like, you open the fridge and, like, condiments are falling out and they're expired.
Yeah.
And there's, like, too many hot sauce. Like, it's a bit excessive because I, like, forget what I bought. And it's just, like, it's minimalist, but it's not, like, to be clear, it's not like nobody's going home hungry. It's just, like, there's no waste and there isn't a bunch of stuff moldering in the fridge.
Yeah, that's important to me. And I don't know, I'm not a super religious person, but probably if I was, that would be my religion, is trying to live in a way that is sustainable. And overconsumption grosses me out. You know, these videos on the ASMR videos of all the things you can fit on your Stanley cup, that is my true allergy. And yeah, so I try and apply that to my sewing practice too, and I think there's lots of ways you can subtly bring this into your life if you're not someone who is naturally like that, if you're trying to be a little bit more sustainable, or if you've gotten into sewing and realized this is not a super cheap hobby.
Yeah. But it can be.
It can be.
So, cheap sewing guru, tell us how we follow your ways.
Good, yes. So my first tip is using what you have. I think the impulse when you're excited to make a new make is always to hit the store or start shopping for fabric. And I think the easiest thing is...
It's hard when there's a fabric store here.
Yeah, to be fair, you do have the candy store at your disposal. But for those of us that don't, I think, starting with the place of seeing what you have. So if you are someone that has a sewing stash, start there and see if there's something that's going to work for your pattern first. And then also using up what you have once you've made projects. So little remnants. This Jenna I'm wearing was created entirely from linen scraps that I had from a bunch of different other projects. And it ended up making a really 90s colorway.
It's very Saved by the Bell. The palette is very Saved by the Bell.
This is it. You nailed it. That's exactly right.
Well, I just want to say linen is a great thing because even if you get those scraps that are like napkin sized, what I will do is if I get anything that's like at least 12 inches, I just throw them in a bin, and then you can either hem them or do a rolled hem on your serger, and then they make really cute napkins, and then you can give somebody a really cute gift of like mismatched, artfully, like linen is like, I don't throw anything linen out.
It's so high quality, and it lasts forever. Like that's the thing about linen is it gets better with age. And so I like this shirt now, but I think I'm gonna like it even better once it gets in the wash a bit. But I think an important thing to note with scrap busting is you want all of the fabrics to be the same family, I guess I would say, or weight. And I think
like
that
you don't want to mix like viscose and denim.
That's it. Yeah, that's where your seams are going to struggle, and you're going to have one of the or the other ripping. And I think it also just makes the garment look more made to be that way, as it were.
So
intentional.
I would say like practical tips for this would be quilting, obviously. So if you have smaller scraps, we'll get Jimmy to.
No.
Well, you could make a quilt. She's got a quilt.
So this was next up on my scrap busting, and I think that
let's hold it up for the camera.
Yeah. So this is a quilt I made for one of my sons, and it's pretty much entirely made with scraps of my husband's button-up shirts. When we did a big closet clear out, I saved a lot of those scraps, and they were great because they're all the same weight of cotton. You want cotton for quilting, obviously. And it was meaningful for my son because we have a lot of pictures of his dad holding him in a lot of these shirts. He remembered these shirts. And so I find that quilting is obviously the oldest scrap busting tradition out there, and I think it's really lovely. It's a lovely way of commemorating a person. If you have someone that passes, I think it's a lovely thing to do with their clothes or their shirts.
And it doesn't even have to be a quilt. We'll get Jimmy to insert here.
Yeah.
The belt bag. I just made a cork belt bag with fabric scraps, and it looks amazing. So it's obviously like quilting is an option. We do have the poof pattern as a free download, which you can make from scraps, and then you can stuff with scraps. But I think in general is like looking at patterns, and if you have some good scraps and they're in the same weight or they're in the same color family, like is there a way that instead of having one big pattern piece that I could maybe do some color blocking?
And I really like using, if I have a really precious fabric but not quite enough of it, I'll do the facings or any part of the garment that you don't see out of scraps, or pocket linings in pants or whatever. There's always room for a little piece of cotton, so don't throw out your scraps.
Yeah. Okay, what's your second tip?
Second tip is frugal sewing tools. So this is actually, we're looking at one right now. This is a DIY. It's an portable ironing board we made out of just plywood.
And we do have a tutorial for this on the blog.
We'll add that. We'll link that for sure. But yeah, I don't love buying expensive, fancy sewing tools. I think there's often something that you can use around the house that works just as well. One of the things I made was a tailor's ham during the pandemic.
This blew my mind.
During the pandemic, I needed a tailor's ham, and stores weren't open, and I couldn't get out. And I was like, well, what else could I use?
I also feel like I have a hard time visualizing you spending $30 on a tailor's ham.
It's ridiculous. It's just a firm piece of thing. And I was cleaning out sock drawers in our house, and so this is all stuffed with many wool and cotton socks. You do want to use something that isn't going to melt, obviously. And so yeah, I just started with a bundle of socks, and then I just kept stuffing them into more and more socks and twisted it. You can see, oh, there's another sock. So
my question about this is, does it smell like socks?
Well, I did wash the socks.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
boy socks, no. I maybe wash more.
No, fair enough. I did put my socks on the outside for a reason. So that's a really good
genius idea. I mean, here's
you.
one little. I also have some frugal sewing tips.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
I've shown this in a YouTube video before. You're like, what is it? So this is a plunger handle that I got at the dollar store, and I love using this for pressing, like inside a shirt. when you have any kind of tube and it's hard to get in there, this dowel is great because you can put it in there and then you can get your seam pressed open. And it's also really good because it's really curved. So if you press a seam and you don't want the seam to show through, there is no flat surface to embed the seam on the other layer. So this is like a sewing tool I use all the time. And it was $1.
Do they make an expensive version of that?
Well, I think that there's like artisanal sewing tools where somebody, and I have seen them and they're very expensive. Alternatively, you could go to the hardware store, get a dowel, and if you have a table saw.
There you go.
I happen to have a table saw because it's not my own, sewing's not my only hobby. And you can cut it in half. And then you can have that shape, but then have it flat so it doesn't roll. But this is literally was like $1 plunger at the dollar store.
Yeah, and that one hasn't been in a toilet, FYI. And then the other thing, pattern weights are something I have seen some very cute, expensive ones on Etsy, but I collect these when I go on trips to the beach. Any kind of, now my kids know I want them, so any kind of flat, big rock, these make excellent pattern weights, and they also look really pretty in your sewing room, and you have memories from places you've been.
And I mean, my cheap sewing tip would be to go to the hardware store and buy the big flat washers, but those are actually not necessarily cheap. You might spend $20, and that costs nothing.
Yeah, so I think that there's lots of ways of,
what was your other idea with like parchment paper?
Oh, yes. I use rolls of parchment paper when I'm wanting to either trace a pattern or if I want to make alterations on a pattern. It's
like for baking.
Yeah. And you can get the really wide width now, which it's new to me, but I got some the other day, and again, dollar store. And you can get a whole pant leg or a biggish pattern piece on that, and if not, you can just tape them together, and you can rub off your patterns that way.
That's good if you don't need too much. You can also get the paper that doctors and massage therapists like put on their table. You get big rolls of that. I think they probably call it like massage table paper, and it's like $10 or $15, and it's thin, and they're wide, and it lasts forever. So that's one hack, and you're not having to buy like Swedish tracing paper, which is very expensive.
No need.
And for marking tools, I honestly just use pencils.
Yeah, me too.
Colored pencils. That's, if I'm not going to see it, if I'm marking a circle and I know it's not visible on the other side, I'm using colored pencils there all the time.
I use white pencil crayons. My kids, we have to get new pencil crayons every year, and nobody uses the white, let's be honest. And so I stopped throwing them away, and I have 6 in a jar, and that's what I use for marking. Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways. I mean, we could do a whole video just about cheap sewing. And we have a blog post about cheap.
Good point. Yeah, I did write a blog post about it, so we'll link that below.
Tip number 3.
Tip number 3.
Tip number 3.
So, sorry. Keep going. So I actually think we should start with you on this one because you're wearing the cutest example. I think this is sort of in the category of repurposing, recycling, altering things to fit.
Refashioning. So I made this a million years ago. Felt like it was a refashioning challenge, and I went to the thrift store and I bought this men's blazer in this beautiful wool. And then I refashioned it into this vest by cutting the sleeves off. And I can't even remember all that I did. I used the fabric from the sleeve to make bias tape, and then I finished the inside, and then it's just this really cool
vest. It's really
vest.
Gorgeous.
And it wasn't super hard. And it was really fun to take the whole thing apart. And so I think we have an amazing thrift store that just opened up down the street, and I've been going on a weekly basis. And sometimes even if you're like, I don't have the bandwidth to go and sew a whole thing, just going to the thrift store and finding cool garments or pretty fabrics and being creative about how you can refashion them is such a dirt cheap way to sew.
Totally. And I've done lots of projects from, jeans that are just finely worn through, but you can repurpose the legs of them and refashion those into other garments. And then also using fabric that wasn't necessarily intended to be garment fabric. Heather has a beautiful, I'm coveting this.
So I can't remember I can't remember if somebody gave this to me or maybe I bought it at like an antique market or something. But it's this exquisite linen tablecloth with all of this like punched out lace and then all of this embroidery, and it's this very, very fine linen
so
to the
soft.
point that I want to like cut a swatch of it and give it to Core Fabrics to be like, can we find this?
Yeah.
But it's just exquisite, and it's got all these gorgeous motifs. So I've been hoarding this for 2 years to make something with it, and I think this year there's 2 crew patterns I'm considering using. and then taking those kind of embroidered pieces and like centering them. What a fun, this would just be a joyful day for me to like put this on my cutting table and figure out how to make use of this.
It's so fun.
And I would never put this on my table because I drink a red wine.
Yeah.
And this would just get trashed.
No, I inherited so many linen tablecloths from my mother-in-law, and this is the thing, is people don't use them. Still has they've been married for 60 years. She still has wedding tablecloths she hasn't used. So I am trying to figure out all the ways you can use it. And the thing about those is, it's like we said, linen is so valuable, and if you're buying linen yardage, it's expensive. So I think curtains, tablecloths, I look for those things all the time at the thrift stores, and people get rid of them because, again, they don't know what to do with them. And
you also are a fan, because we both love linen sheets.
Yes.
But my linen sheet hack is when they start getting grody, I dye them.
Yeah.
But you've used them to make clothes with.
Occasionally they do get ripped, and the fitted sheet, once you've got a rip, I've tried mending them, but your foot always feels that little, they're finished. And so that's so much yardage. A queen size fitted sheet is so much yardage. So I've made shirts, and tons of clothes out of repurposed linen. And so I think that is.
And you're not stuck with the color. I think we have like a whole series. I didn't mean for this video to literally be just us being like, we have a blog post for that.
Well, we do have a lot of blog posts.
We've been blogging for a long time, but we have a whole series of blog posts about natural dyeing, fabric reactive dyeing, and I think if you have like a stained, like this has got some staining on it, and if I can't work around it, I would consider dyeing it. The key, if you want to dye it, is that you just want to use cotton thread for any visible stitching.
Yes.
Because if you're doing any top stitching, almost all thread has polyester in it. So if you're using a fiber reactive dye, it won't dye that, so you'll have the same color thread. But if you use cotton thread for all your top stitching or whatever, and then you dye the whole thing, all of the elements will dye.
The alternative to that is to dye it first.
Of course.
Yeah, and you probably will we do have blog posts on both dyeing yardage and dip dyeing or dyeing pre-made garments, but you do get a more even dye finish if you dye the yardage. And then you can play. Sometimes you can't cover up a stain. I have tried to cover up a stain with a dye. So if you're counting on that working, it's better to do it when it's still in its full fabric form, and then you can still work around it. But yeah, it's an endless. Again, we could probably make a whole video on just this topic, and we do have a blog post on reusing fabric. We'll link it below.
Okay.
Number four is how to get the most out of your pattern. So up until this point, it's been pretty focused on the fabric, but patterns, ours are extremely, how do you say it? Valuable and worth every penny.
Value rich. And you should get every single one.
But that said, sometimes you're wanting a garment that is close enough to a pattern you already have, and I love hacking a pattern. And it can be scary at first because you think, oh, is it going to work, and has it been tested? But I think that it's, maybe play around with a lower stakes garment with fewer seam lines so that if you do it and it doesn't work out, you're not super disappointed. But a lot of the time, it's just a change of a pocket. I love the idea of taking a pocket you love from something and adding it to another garment or whatever. There's lots of ways you can mix and match.
Or just like let's say you're like, oh, I'm making a pair of jeans and I really like the way that the rise on this fits, but I really like the width of these other pants. So just like kind of Frankensteining patterns together, I think is a really good way to like get to where you're going. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that like particularly if you're like budget conscious, I think this is a really great way to save.
Another way that you can get a pattern without having to source one originally is if there's something that you like the fit of, a t-shirt, a tank top, particularly works well for knits where fit isn't. Yeah. But there was a tank top I loved from Joe Fresh, and I was like, this is so simple. And so again, enter the parchment paper. You can just line that up, trace it off, and try sewing it up and see if you can get a similar effect. So I think, I think they call it rubbing.
Rub-offs.
Rub-offs.
I think for like a big beginner, knits are definitely the way to go. It's much easier to do this with like t-shirts and stuff like that. It gets more challenging with wovens because there tends to be a lot more shaping in the seams. You got darts and stuff like that. It's harder, but I think that can be a really great introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like underwear, if there's, sometimes just a subtle difference in cut is what makes you love a pair of panties as opposed to, sorry, she hates that word. Let's take a moment.
I can't believe you just used that word on our YouTube station.
Undies.
On our YouTube station?
Underwears.
Undies.
Lungi.
I know, you have to, we all just sound like children because they're like, my undies, but it's just.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, I'm going to just pretend that didn't happen.
Shake it off. But yeah, I think that that's a really good way to play around with making, recreating ready-to-wear that you love and giving it a shot. What are the stakes? No investment.
Okay, as long as you don't use a P word.
No more P word. I
Tip
promise.
number 5.
So my 5th tip is because let's be honest, like there is everything out there in the world already, and chances are somebody's grandmother passed, rest in peace. A neighbor who sewed, is no longer with us, and people don't know what to do with this stuff. If they don't sew, they don't know what to do. So I have inherited, I think, 3 different collections of sewing fabric, material, like sewing machines, patterns, notions,
Fabrics.
Everything.
Amy's neighbor Maria passed away, and she had a business. She was a dressmaker for years, and literally they were like, here, what do you want? And it was just a room filled
garbage bags. And her children didn't know what to do. They don't sew, and they didn't want to throw it in the garbage, and thank God they didn't.
Well, and one of the first, this is especially a great thing if you're getting started and there's like, there can be a lot of stuff that you need when you get started. And so what I was doing when I started sewing, back then it was like Kijiji. Now it's Facebook Marketplace, let's be real. But I was just kind of looking all the time for anything sewing related, and a woman had passed away, and they were like, we don't know what to do. Like, if we don't know what any of this is worth, if you come, like, just take a look. And so there was some fabric, but more it was like button tins. Like this woman had saved instead of like if a garment was finished, she would take all the buttons off. So I had like complete button sets, like 3 things. We're still using these buttons to this day.
These were my mother-in-law's stash of buttons. And there was just the perfect amount I needed. And I thought, how cosmically correct is that? That these women saved these things hoping they would use them. They didn't get a chance to use them in their lifetime, and then they're on my shirt. I mean, I'm getting tingles about it because it does get into the spiritual realm of what I'm talking about, where this is a philosophy and I think a way of looking at consumption that is like, there's just so many layers to why I think it's awesome. And I think my nanny was a hoarder, not literally, but a sewing notion hoarder. And my aunt inherited a lot, but a lot we had to give to a thrift store. And I'm just hoping that all of those things she meticulously saved get put to use, because I'm sure that would make her soul happy.
And I think it's not just like going on Marketplace and like going through dead people's things, but it can be a community thing. So
absolutely.
When we have fabric, like we'll have like once or twice a year have people come in to buy fabric, and we do fabric swaps where we just fill the room we're in right now with everybody's fabrics, and then you can just come in and trade. I like having clothing swaps a couple times a year with my girlfriends, where I like make a big spread and then we try everybody's clothes on, and I like bring, at this point we have so many samples and clothes coming in and out that I always have like bags of stuff. And there is just ways that you can make this like a fun activity and kind of participate with your friends. Like, and if you have friends, even if you don't have friends in your community, if you live in an area where there's lots of sewists, is like organizing a fabric stash party.
Absolutely.
And then having a swap.
And you will meet people, and then it's I think that idea of one man's trash is another man's treasure is so true with sewing, because we just have different taste, and maybe a color doesn't work on you that will work on someone else, and there's just nothing that gives me more pleasure than seeing things go where they belong, to whom they belong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting thoughts you want to leave us with?
I think that I just always draw inspiration from the past with this particular topic. I think it is something that we can always tap into, that our grandmothers who sewed and their grandmothers who sewed have just always practiced this. And so I think it's a way of tapping into our ancestry and our connection to sewing in general. And yeah, I encourage you to give it a shot if it's not natural for you, and tell us in the comments what's your favorite way to save.
I want to know what your tricks are for
Yeah, I want more.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this, like and subscribe. We got more content coming every week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.